Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going to be back with today's guest, but first let's hear from our podcast sponsors. We want to thank Violet Defense for their support of the podcast. Go to their website at violetdefense.com for more information. Violet Defense is dedicated to protecting our world from germs by bringing the power of UV disinfection to everyday spaces. Their patented technology enables them to harness the power of the sun to incorporate ultraviolet light into products and environments like never before. Whether you're ready to implement existing products, or if you'd like to explore researching and developing a custom deployment of their technology for your school, Violet Defense has the solutions and the experience you need. Once again, go to violetdefense.com for more information. We also want to thank Sideline Interactive for their support. You know, it's becoming harder and harder to fund an athletic department these days, but Sideline Interactive's indoor scoring tables and video boards can generate $10,000 or more every year, while also creating excitement in the gym and the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. Go to sidelineinteractive.com or call 832-786-0302 to schedule a live web demo to see their tables and boards in action and find out exactly what their fantastic products can do for you. You can also email them at sales@sidelineinteractive.com. That's sales@sidelineinteractive.com. You won't be disappointed. We also want to thank Wall of Fame by Vital Signs. You know, they're on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. They provide a variety of interactive touchscreen options, along with an extensive library of templates to make it easier than ever to recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. For ideas on how to showcase your school's diverse history, along with your proudest moments, visit vitalsignswalloffame.com. Or to learn more and get started with your own digital Wall of Fame tribute, call them at 614-981-3589 or email them at sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. That's sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. We also want to thank Huddle. At Huddle, we power sports. More than 180,000 teams, including the best in the world, are using Huddle to elevate the performance of their student athletes and their teams using video and analytics. Huddle is the complete performance platform. They've got online tools, mobile apps, smart cameras, including the Huddle Focus. Of course, there's analytics and a whole lot more. Huddle's built for every level of play, from the club and youth programs up through high school and college and even into the professional ranks. You're in pretty good company. Over 6 million users, including your student athletes, a lot of their parents, and of course, the coaches of the college and university teams that you're trying to get your kids recruited to. If you want to learn more about Huddle and find out how your school can become a Huddle school, go to huddle.com and talk to their professionals. Remember, at Huddle, we power sports. We also want to thank Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack for sponsoring the AD's Toolbox segment of the podcast. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect some comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your athletic program. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack also gives you access to the 95% of the players and their parents who really love your program, and it gives them a voice to help demonstrate the importance that a positive athletic experience has for them. Go to athleticsurveys.com and check out their testimonials, and then give them a call at 1-800-738-6466, or you can email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack. Let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. And we also want to thank Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. You can learn more at hometownticketing.com. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going to stay right here in Florida, and we're going to be visiting with Mel Gables. She is the Director of Athletics at a brand new high school, Davenport High School in Central Florida. She and I connected last year at our state conference, and just very excited to have her on the program today. Mel, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Hey, I appreciate it, Jake. Thank you for having me. I'm excited about this opportunity.
Well, we're looking forward to it. And again, I know we've talked about having a special one with some of your student athletes on later on in the year. So let's go and get started with this. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that 5-minute bio, where you were born, where you grew up and went to school, and how your path kind of led you to Davenport High School.
All right. So like you said, my name's Mel Gables. I was born right here in Central Florida. As a matter of fact, where I'm working at now is literally probably 7 minutes away from where I grew up. My family has property, so I've had that property for 40 years. So that's a great opportunity for me to be able to work in the community that I grew up in. I went to Haines City High School, which is a local high school here. Actually, is now one of our rivals. Played 4 sports for 3 years there. So I ended up, I think, with 16 letters or something other like that in athletics. Went on to college and played volleyball, 1 year of basketball. And then I went to a JUCO, and then I went to Warner University and finished up my career as a volleyball player and went into teacher education. Went back and took a job at my alma mater and was there for 20 or 19 years before I left. So I was there with that athletics and started coaching right out of college, and it's always been my passion to be a part of that. So it's pretty much right here, all within one little area.
You know, I always love to hear the stories. Talk a little bit about that transition from coaching to AD, and also talk a little bit about some of the aspects of opening up a brand new school.
That's a big question right there. So from coaching to AD, I retired from coaching in 2011, I believe. It's actually my mentor that I'd been coaching with for 17 years. She passed away due to cancer. Hall of Fame coach here in Florida. And, I decided that we had kind of made this deal years and years ago that, one wouldn't coach without the other. So when she finally was no longer able to coach, I decided I wanted to go ahead and move on up into the administrative level in the classroom, out of the classroom. And I was already out of the classroom as far as the teaching. And I was in the office as a dean of discipline. I was a Title I director. So I had a few roles, ended up being a success coach. So there's quite a few things that I did. I was pursuing my master's in educational leadership. And then I just decided to put it on pause because I really wasn't sure that's how I wanted to go, because my passion has always been sports and in athletic administration. So I kind of, just put that on hold. So what brought me into coming to Davenport High School is I had taken 2 years off from being an AD and learned that the school was being opened. And when I found out it's about 3 minutes as the crow flies from my house, I thought, what a great opportunity for me to, I'm in my 22nd or 23rd year of education, to finish out right next to my house and be a part of something that not many people get to be a part of. This is our 3rd high school in Polk County in the past 20 years. So these do not come along very often. And when I was given the opportunity to interview, I was super excited about it because I do love sports and I love the passion that I bring to sports. So, it just seemed like it was a match made in heaven.
That's it's so cool. I've been fortunate to be part of a couple of startups myself over my career.
Oh, wow.
all the things that I think an AD might take for granted about how did this get started, whether it's, an administrative process or tradition. You're right there at ground zero, helping build those traditions. That's got to be a really cool experience.
It really is. And honestly, I took for granted because there was the high school that I was an alumni of, that I was a part of. So I knew the traditions and it was rich and we had all these things. And then when you come to a brand new school, Well, we always did it this way. Okay, so in your head you're thinking, well, we've always done it this way, but so is every other coach because they've come from every other school, because we're all brand new. Even though we've come with experience, we're all brand new to Davenport. So that's really created a lot of cross conversations with coaches. Well, why do you do it this way? Instead of just accepting it because it's always been, we're building the ship as we're flying it, so to speak. That's kind of been my motto this year, especially with construction delays and all the things that go along with building a new school, especially, honestly, supplies coming in. Just to be kind of not really flippant or glib about it, but my volleyball season's over. We made it to regionals. I was super excited as a first-year program with no seniors to make it to regionals, but I still don't have my game volleyballs yet. So I reached out to my former AD friends. I'm like, hey, can I borrow some balls from you guys? Because I got to have them. So, those are the challenges, but the reward of like seeing a program start from absolutely nothing and building up is a great experience.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, you're giving those kids, particularly those seniors, a great experience, great
Well,
stuff.
we don't have seniors yet. Yeah, we have no
Wow.
seniors.
Okay.
So we're 9 through 11. We're 9 through 11, and then we will open up to seniors next year.
Oh,
So we will
wow.
have that opportunity to have a senior class
Right.
For next year. So like I said, it is a great momentum builder, and especially for these freshmen to come through, because these ninth graders will be the first actual fully graduating class of Davenport High School. So that's pretty
Right.
exciting. And so there's a lot of kids who are playing sports right now that probably may have not gotten the opportunity at other schools because they were freshmen when you're coming from really strong programs in our area, or in particular sports.
Oh, yeah, no question. No question. What a great experience for them. For visitors, we are meeting with Mel Gables. She's the athletic director at Davenport High School, a brand new high school in the state of Florida. We're going to be back for some more, but let's take a quick break and hear from one of our podcast sponsors. We want to thank Huddle for their support of the Educational AD podcast. Remember, at Huddle, we power sports. Over 180,000 teams are using Huddle to elevate the performance of their teams using video and analytics. Huddle's the complete platform for performance. They have online tools, mobile and desktop apps, smart cameras like the Huddle Focus. We have a Huddle Focus camera in our gym, and it is fantastic. Of course, there's analytics and a whole lot more. Huddle's built for every level of play, starting at the club and youth levels, up through high school and college, and even professional teams are using Huddle to help them get better. You're in pretty good company with over 6 million users, including your student athletes, a lot of their parents, and of course, the college and university coaches you're trying to get your kids recruited to. If you want to find out more about what Huddle can do for you and how your school can become a Huddle school, go to their website at huddle.com. Remember, Huddle, we power sports. Welcome back to our interview with Mel Gables, the athletic director at Davenport High School in Florida. Mel, in our profession, we always talk about the importance of leadership and particularly mentorship. So I always ask, who are some of the mentors that you've had in your life? Maybe family members or coaches or even people that you've worked with or worked for. Who's had an influence that's helped get you where you are today?
Wow, that's a great question. And at different times of my life, there have been different mentors that have really had a key impact on me. Obviously, when I was a student in high school, was my volleyball coach, Robin Wagman, and she was an amazing teacher, leader, community member. Taught me how to fundraise like no other. And this was back in the 80s. So, this was back in the day. I may have dated myself there a little bit, but she was an incredible person. And so I got to, coach with her for 17 years, like I was talking about before she passed. So she had a huge influence on my life, along with my softball coaches, CJ Williams and Judy Markham. They were, and what's really ironic is I ended up getting to teach with all of them, which was a blessing to me. And along with my high school basketball coach, he was still at the school when I became a teacher there. So my core group of mentors I got to work with every day, which was really incredible. And since then I've had some great leaders uh, um, as my bosses, as a principal. And you really have to have, and well, this is just my opinion, of course, a great relationship with your admin on how they can mold and guide you, especially if you have questions or concerns and you want to be able to go to them. Um, and I took a little brief from high school after being there 20 years and went to a middle school and met Dr. Catherine Blackburn Kate. And I will tell you, she has taught me more about being a leader um, in the later years of my life, because I mean, as a coach, I think sometimes we are natural leaders, or at least I feel it should be part of our role as a coach. And I feel that same way as an athletic director. But she taught me some leadership skills on the other side of that coin. And then my county athletic director, Dan Talbot, is just absolutely amazing. He's kind of like my big brother. So, we argue and fight a little bit like, brother and sister. But in all honesty, I know that he has a passion for athletics, and he cares about his ADs, and he cares about what they represent and how they represent him and how they represent the county. So, those are some big time people that has had a lot of influence on my professional career. Absolutely.
You mentioned some really big names in the state of Florida, and then you ended with Dan Talbot. Dan's a dear friend, longtime board member together for FIAAA, and he was actually guest number 3 on our podcast. Yeah, no, Dan's great. Mel, you and I have already talked about some of the unique aspects of opening up a brand new school. I'm wondering if you could share a little bit, maybe one or two traditions that you are helping start, or the coaches or the kids are helping start. Tell us what it is and maybe how it came about and how you're working that. Anything special that you can share with us?
Well, I'll tell you, after our first game for football, we were away at a school, and we won. And it was just really neat to see that the cheerleaders, they came out after the coaches had talked to the guys in the huddle, whatever. And then they all, huddled up and hugged around each other. And, they had like a moment of silence together. And it's become win, lose, or draw. They do that after every game. So they celebrate the win and they celebrate the loss. Well, that's a bad way to put it. But they still come together after a loss, just like they would after a win. And that, to me, I think comes from our leadership of our football staff, because no one really wants to be around a lot of people when you lose a game, especially if it's a close game. But they've kind of created that culture of caring within themselves right after the game. So that, to me, I was like, that's a pretty cool thing that they're doing. Now, we have some other traditions that we have talked about, but due to facility issues at the beginning and middle of our football season, we weren't able to make it happen. But like this Bronco that's above my head up here, I would like to get one for our field house locker room, and the kids go out and touch it every time. And just some sort of tradition of that way, just to kind of have that touch feel of what it means to really to be a Bronco. So that's one of the things that we've started, and I'm really happy with that. Now we just now getting into basketball season and soccer. So we just had our very first home soccer game last night. So we're still working on some things for them to do, but it's an adventure, and it's kind of unique because, like I said, we have new coaches that are new to me. For the most part, every one of my coaches are brand new to me except for 2. So this is we're having a learning process, and they're coming from Iowa, up north, Midwest, down south Miami. So it's a lot of different cultures and things that we're bringing together to try to meld it all together to make our program successful.
Oh yeah, taking the best of all the people that are participating, so they feel a part of it. I love that. The tradition that you talked about. We actually did that at one of the schools that I was at. We just call it the Victory Huddle. And the victory was us competing, and the victory was the fans and the cheerleaders supporting. Sometimes we won on the scoreboard, sometimes we didn't, but we still had that victory huddle to just celebrate. Hey, what a great experience we just had. Very, very cool stuff. We are visiting with Mel Gables. She is the Director of Athletics at Davenport High School in Florida. We're going to be back for some more wisdom, but let's take one more break and hear from one of our sponsors. We also want to thank Sideline Interactive for their support of the podcast. We actually have a Sideline Interactive video table in our gym, and it is tremendous. You really need to check these folks out. You know, it's becoming harder and harder to fund an athletic department these days, but Sideline Interactive's indoor scoring tables and video boards can generate $10,000 or more every year while creating excitement in the gym and the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. Go to sidelineinteractive.com or call them at 832-786-0302 to schedule a live web demo and see their tables and boards in action and find out exactly what these fantastic products can do for you. You can also email them at sales@sidelineinteractive.com. That's sales@sidelineinteractive.com. We're back with Mel Gables from Davenport High School. And for our listeners, we're recording this on November 17th. So you're going to be listening to it in a very timely manner. Coach, one of the things we try to do with the podcast is this idea of sharing best practices. So I'm going to put you on the spot. What are some things that you've seen in your career, maybe at other schools, or even things that you're trying to do right now at Davenport that you would consider best practices, things that you can step back and say, boy, we really do a great job with this? Do you have anything you can share?
Well, there's a couple things. And, you know, this may fall under even a different category, but going to those conferences is one of the things that I think is a best practice for athletic directors. And the entire time I've been an athletic director, I never missed a FACA conference or an FIAAA conference every single year. You network, you meet friends, there's so many things that you can learn. And it's just a great time to be around people who are going through exactly what you're going through or have been through it and maybe could possibly help you get through it. So networking with those other professionals is a huge part of a best practice for me. And one of the things that you learn when you're an athletic director, old or young, brand new or been a seasoned 20-year athletic director, is to always have systems in place for you to be able to double check your work and to double check and have someone kind of go follow up behind you a little bit and be like, why are we, you know, are you sure we're supposed to have 2 games on this? Because that doesn't make sense. And, you know, a lot of people, I think, tend to get a little offended if someone asks them a questions about, are you sure we're supposed to be having parking on this day or whatever? And to me, I see it as a help. And so I enlist the help of people that I trust. And, you know, I've got a brand new, some brand new people that I'm working with this year. And I've already found a couple people that I'm like, I'll bring them to my office and I'll say, hey, will you look at this list and see if this makes sense? And they'll look and they'll say something. I'm like, I didn't see that. You know, that could be something I've done 100 times, but it still just gets by you. So to me, asking for help is the best practice, and knowing when to ask for help. You know, sometimes we're kind of seen as like, oh, we should know this. We know everything. We should know all these rules, because I think that's people's perceptions. But, you know, you don't want to speak out of turn, because you speak out of turn and then, you know, you make a mistake and then you kind of look foolish. So for me, one of the best practices, and I'm a pretty assertive person, and I you know, I try to make sure that I'm always doing the right thing. But if I don't know, the first I'm emailing my 80 people, and one of them is Pam Lancaster, who I should have mentioned earlier about the people that influenced you, because to me, Pam is kind of the epitome of the professional AD. She lives, eats, breathes, bloodhound sports. And, you know, I mean, I text her and I'm like, hey, how do you do this? And she's given me ideas. So it's like, networking is such a huge thing. You cannot be an island of one and be successful AD. I just don't see how that can happen.
You're so right. And I love the, you know, the John Wooden quote. It says, I finally became smart when I realized I didn't know everything. And you mentioned another FIAAA legend there, Pam Lancaster. You talk about Dan Talbot was interview number 3, and we've done over 200 now. Pam was number 4.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
No, we
And then, you
only
know
have the
what? And they need
best.
to be, yeah, they need to be at that number 3, number 4 slot, because honestly, they know the rules, they know this, they know that, and they just know how to communicate with people. And that, you know, and that's a huge part of being an athletic director. You can't sit in your office and just do paperwork. It's a full-time job. It you know, sitting in your office is great if you can find that time.
Yeah. And you really brought up another great point, bringing those people in, to look at that list or check that schedule out. That's actually, nurturing and developing their leadership skills, so they can go back and do an even better job in their area, which is going to help the school. So, great job.
You know what? And I'm glad you said it, because, hosting our first football game, right after our very first football game, I met with the admin team. I'm like, hey, what did you see that went well? What did you see that went, that we need improvement on? Because again, this is a brand new faculty working together for this event. And it was so weird, because the things that I thought were absolutely a disaster, no one else even thought in their mind that there was anything wrong with that. And it was unfathomable, being like, well, the ticket person was there 15 minutes late, and this and this and this. And to me, that's like all these things. They're like, in the big scheme of things, it wasn't. But, it just kind of gives you a different perspective on what your role is and how you're trying to control it and what their role is. So meeting up with your admin team after a major event, especially your opening football game, your opening home event, soccer, basketball, whatever, to kind of work out those tweaks. And so we continued to work at it. And by week 4, I really didn't have to worry. I mean, I was staying right up until game time. Then we would go to game time. And now I'm like, okay, game kicks off at 7:30. I don't need to really show up till 7. Of course, I'm a little OCD. I'm still going to be here. But as far as just having everything in place, because we worked out those kinks by having those post-event conversations with your admin team.
Yeah. And again, the key phrase you use so well is admin team, them feeling like they're a part of that team, and the success of, that evening's event, they're invested in, very, very good stuff. I wish I would have learned that much earlier in my career. Okay. We are visiting, as I've said, with Mel Gables. She's the director of athletics at Davenport High School in Central Florida. We're going to be back for some more, but we're going to take another quick break and hear from one of our sponsors. Please stay with us. We also want to thank Wall of Fame by Vital Signs. They are on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. They provide a variety of interactive touchscreen options, along with an extensive library of templates to make it easier than ever to recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. For ideas on how to showcase your school's diverse history along with your proudest moments, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com, or to learn more and get started on your own digital Wall of Fame tribute. Call them at 614-981-3589, or you can email them at sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. That's sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. Hey, welcome back to our visit with Mel Gables, athletic director at Davenport High School. Coach, nowadays, we talk about the importance of social emotional health for student athlete. And it was something that, what didn't even exist from a discussion standpoint. It certainly was there. But I'm going to guess when you were playing, and I'm a little bit older than you, so it certainly wasn't there when I was playing. And, the phrase, come on, you got to be tough, or you got to suck it up, was, very common coaching technique. That's what they knew back then. So my question to you is this: how can an AD or a head coach, move away from that and find a balance between teaching and coaching kids to be tough, while also being aware of and sensitive to the very real social emotional challenges that a Generation Z kid is going through? Do you have any advice for us?
When I first started coaching, and that was back in the early 90s, I was a lot more, I want to say, aggressive. As I grew older, I mellowed out, Didn't mean my passion was any less. As a matter of fact, I think my passion actually grew. Um, but being able to monitor that, and I have an example, when you were talking about telling someone to suck it up, or or just trying to figure out how to fix it. So I had this student athlete, probably the best student athlete I have ever coached in my 20 whatever year career. I would put her up against any sport, against anybody. I mean, she was just that tough. However, and she actually went on and played at a Division I dual scholarship. So when I tell you this young lady was phenomenal. She could not take being yelled at. Now I'm a yeller. I really am. And whether I'm yelling encouragement, or whether I'm yelling instruction, or whether I'm yelling because you blew that, right? And it took me, I would probably say, halfway through the season to figure that out. And looking back on it, I'm a little mad that it took me that long. But looking back, but when you have to realize what makes your athlete work. And as an athletic director, it's the same thing for your coaches. When you're having conversations with your coaches, and coaches, when you're having conversations with your athletes, you have to figure out what they respond to. And if you don't know them on that kind of level, you're not going to have the success that you potentially could have without knowing that piece of information. Once I figured out how to address this young lady, and I had another athlete, and they were potentially right there next to each other, she was just the opposite. I could yell at her and I could challenge her, and she would run through the brick wall without even asking me why, because I told her to. So, but both of these athletes, both scholar athletes, just phenomenal young ladies, same time on the same team, but had to coach them completely different. And that was probably one of the greatest things that I learned, was on how to address those student athletes. So when you're talking about now, some athletes, you could still say, you need to suck it up. Let's go. You can do this, versus, hey, come here, let me talk to you about this. This is why I want you to play it this way. And so then you have to kind of rationale and reason with them on this, because they are different. We are not that same mentality that we were 20 years ago, 30 years ago, where you could, tell them to rub some dirt on it and let's go. We're just not that, and society is not that way. And we have to continue to grow in order to help those kids come along, and the coaches that we are supervising.
You really hit on two key topics. Each athlete is different, and they really kind of do need to be reached at their own level. I had a quarterback very similar to what you talked about, just a tough, aggressive kid, and thrived on, and you took words right out of my mouth: yelling encouragement, yelling instruction. That was me as a football coach. And this young man just thrived on it, had him for 3 years, went off and played college football. His successor was was an even more physically imposing specimen, but, and I mean this in a very positive way, much more sensitive kid. And it took me, I'm going to say, a couple of weeks over the summer to realize I had to coach him in a much different way. And when I figured that out as a coach, he didn't have to change, I needed to change.
Right.
The results were, fantastic. And again, we chuckle about that now, but two great kids. So, and you talk about the difference between then and now, eras. We know more now, and so if we're not utilizing the science to do a better job, shame on us as ADs and shame on us as coaches. So very, very
absolutely. When we know better, we should do better.
Right. You're so right. I really appreciate you sharing that.
Yes, sir.
Like I said, Mel and I met last year at our state AD conference as I was finishing up my term as the president. And I knew right away that there was that connection there. So you articulated it for me. We're both yellers of encouragement.
Yes.
We're going to be back in just a second and find out what Mel Gables is going to put in her athletic director toolbox, which is sponsored by Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack. So please stick around with us and find out what Mel's going to put in her toolbox. Hey, we want to thank Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack for sponsoring the Athletic Director's Toolbox segment of our podcast. they have some really unique ways to help you as an AD. So please check them out. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your athletic program. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack also gives you access to the 95% of the players and parents who really love your program, and it gives them a voice to help demonstrate the importance that a positive athletic experience has for them. Go to athleticsurveys.com and check out their testimonials, and then give them a call at 1-800-738-6466, or you can email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack. Let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. Welcome back to our interview with Mel Gables, athletic director at the brand new Davenport High School in Davenport, Florida. Coach, this has been great reconnecting with you, but we're not done yet. We always like to wrap up with what we call the athletic director's toolbox. You've certainly shown that you're an experienced AD and coach, but right now I'm going to task you with sending out a brand new athletic director on their very first job. But I'm only going to let you put 3 items in their toolbox. What 3 things are going to go in Mel Gables' athletic director toolbox?
Only 3. Okay, so we'll see what I can narrow down. There are so many things that are so important, but they become important at different times in your athletic director journey. So it's kind of, if you're just starting out, this is going to be probably unconventional, and I don't know if anyone's ever mentioned this to you. Depending on whether you're single or married, is involving your partner with your program, husband, wife, or whatever, because athletics can take up so much of your time outside of your regular job, your classroom job, or whatever it is that you do, your role and responsibility at the school, is to involve the person that you are spending the rest of your life with. Because athletics can become such an all-encasing, involving thing, you can often get swept away and you don't realize what is going on other parts because it's so important to you. So my advice is, if they have someone in their life that they potentially are sharing their life with for the rest of their life, or would like to, is to find a way to somehow get them involved so that they can still have a connection, because athletics takes so much time of your life if you're doing it well. Like I said, no one can do this job from 7 in the morning until 2 o'clock and leave and do it well. Let me rephrase it. It can be done, but it won't be done well. So that's one of the, that's something that's just, I feel is an important, especially for someone just starting out in this role, because it can be overwhelming and you need someone to bounce ideas off of, and even your frustrations of something that may be going wrong. So, I feel that's a key component to put in the toolbox. One of the things that I went through this leadership class this past year, and one of the things that I learned that made a really big impact on, everybody's like, well, why do you like to be an AD, or, what is going on? Why do you choose this? And you ask that about any profession. And then for athletics, I look at it this way. And as an AD, I'm a leader. I'm a leader of students. I'm a leader of coaches, or, teachers, a leader in the community. So I question myself. And so this is what I would advise every athletic director, young or old, new or seasoned, to ask themselves, why should the coaches and students follow you? If you can't come up with an answer for that, then there's some soul searching that needs to be done. And that, I think, is a huge component of it. It's like, why should they follow you? And so to me, with that little self-reflection piece, and that took me, when I was in this class, to do this, you immediately write down all these answers, and then you go back and look at it. Well, that's kind of a cliche, and that's kind of a cliche. Really, why do I want people to follow me? I want them to trust me. I want them to know that I'm going to lead them in the right direction, and I'm going to do what's best for the school and the community. Those are part of the reasons that I want to do it, because I want people to know that I'm the person to follow, because I'm not going to steer you wrong. And, and that to me is a self-reflection piece. And then you have your standard things that every AD should be doing, being visible in practices, not just at the games on the sideline saying, hey, good game, or, you'll get them next time, is being in their practices and observing the coaches and seeing their interactions with kids and students. And then looking at one of my things, I don't know if you can see this, but I'm going to turn this just a little bit. This is my baby on the wall. So this did not come in at the beginning of the year. This came in, I want to say at the middle of October. So that's why nothing else is up there except for October to January right now. Being able to visually see that when you take a phone call, well, let me see if I have that availability. And you can look up there and say, I already see I have nothing for Saturday the 1st. So that's a possibility. Being able to have that visual, because you can have it on your computer, you can have it on your phone, you can have all those. But, I'm a little bit old school, and I want to be able to take a look at that and go, okay, this week is going to be crazy. I mean, you can see it on your calendar, but you can really see it on your board. And that to me has been one of the biggest things that has helped me be successful, is to be that organized and have it up there. Now, I do not do that alone. I'm going to be honest with you. My wife helps me do this to keep my life sane. And so that goes back to involving your partner. She's highly OCD and organized. So that helps me help myself. So that's just a thing that makes it a lot easier for me to be successful.
No, those are all tremendous tools. I can certainly speak to the advantages of having or involving your partner. And it was lucky for me. My wife was a career coach, so she was right along there beside me. And that calendar, I didn't have that on my wall, but I had the the hard copy notebook.
Yeah.
And I would tell my coaches, that game might be on your spreadsheet, but if it's not in my calendar, it doesn't exist. Okay.
If it's not on the wall, it's not happening. And that's exactly
yeah.
I just went through this whole thing today, looking at stuff. I'm like, Coach, it's not on my wall.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. 100%. That's the wall of truth right there.
It can go from the wall onto the spreadsheet, into the computer, but if it's not there, it's not there.
Exactly.
Very good stuff. You and I are kindred spirits, no question about it.
Absolutely.
Mel, if one of our listeners wants to reach out and pick your brain, and I certainly encourage you to do so, what's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
Via my email, my school email. It comes to my phone, and if I'm at my desk, I can get it. So yeah, absolutely.
We're low tech here, so you actually have to share that.
You got it. It's Mel, so it's MEL .Gables GABLES at Polk POLK -FL.net. Again, that's Mel.Gables at Polk-FL.net.
Thanks for sharing that. And again, if you're listening, you really need to reach out and pick Mel's brain. She's got some great advice. Mel Gables, thanks so much for being on the podcast. All the best to the Broncos as you continue year one. And thanks again for being on the podcast.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay. For our listeners, remember the Zoom recordings of these interviews are being uploaded to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We appreciate you listening today. Come back again next time for another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. And of course, we want to say thank you again to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Learn more at hometownticketing.com. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing.